What's the most awkward family meal you've been part of? Broke up with my live-in ex, but we stayed friends and roommates for over a year after. We had booked a surprise trip for his mom with like 15 of his family members for the summer after the breakup. Since we were still in really good terms, we decided I would still participate in the trip. First night there we had a dinner together and his mom made a toast welcoming me into the family. I was so embarrassed. I had no idea my ex hadn't told his family that we had broken up. It was super awkward for me, but I decided not to make it awkward for everyone else and just stayed quiet. Oh, that reminds me of when my ex and I were hosting 4th of July and we had just broken up the day before but were still committed to hosting the party and obviously still living together, as it literally happened like 12 hours prior. Everyone was asking us how the wedding planning was going and it was so awkward and uncomfortable pretending like everything was okay. We told everyone the next day, via email. Got invited to a Passover meal and I had never been. So I dressed up and expected to be real serious like going to church. Everyone is in pajamas and on pillows and claimed the meal is supposed to be relaxing, almost like a celebration. The entire night was awkward. I would have liked a bit more pre-information. Should have played it off that you're wearing your formal pajamas. It's not a tie. It's a sleeping cravat. Literally every single one. We don't always sit together for dinner, but when we do, everyone gets excited in the beginning but then we sit in silence. Imagine 6 people sitting on a dining table, chewing silence for 30 minutes or so. Okay, here's the boss move. Pick someone, make direct eye contact, clear your throat, and say, ahem. So, how was your day? Yeah, we're all tried that and everyone receives a one-word response. You should try Rose and Thorn of the Day. You basically go around and everyone says the best and worst thing that happened to them. I think it's made for children, but my flat did it for a year and it was great. Dad joked how our cat is autistic at Thanksgiving. His coworker and his family were over. The son is actually autistic. My little brother did something similar at a cousin's birthday party. One of the other kids did something stupid and he was like, OMG, that's so autistic. It was a stupid thing him and his friends said, but it turns out the kid was autistic and best friends with my cousin. My little brother was uninvited and had to sit in my auntie's living room for the rest of the day. When I was like 8, my cousin told the entire table that she caught me watching lesbian porn. I cried into my mashed potatoes. No one said anything. Was it true though? Yes. It was when porn used to be on cable. Like when you're bored so you scroll the entire menu to the depths of cable hell and there it is. Just waiting for you click it. I brought a girl home from college for Thanksgiving my sophomore year. My younger brother was a senior in high school and he brought his girlfriend. While all gathered at the table, my brother's girlfriend stood up, announced she'd found out he was cheating, and promptly started having an epic meltdown. She was crying and asking why am I not good enough, my girlfriend, and I stepped away and she gave me a decent handjob in the cellar. I came on her legs and she used a terry cloth to wipe up. My brother's girlfriend refused to leave. It wasn't until she smashed a plate that my dad forced her out and threatened to call the cops. That's the short version. Anyway. Christmas dinner 2 years back. My brother had his girlfriend there for the first time. We were all still in the stage of getting to know her. She tells the story of how she beat a girl into a coma when she was 17 years old. My sisters both audibly gasp and make comments under their breath. It was fairly awkward for the rest of the meal. She thought this was a funny story. Classy lady. She's a keeper. She's a beater. My now ex-husband and I were talking about our wedding plans while at a huge family dinner at his dad's house. We told them that we wanted to have a small wedding with no more than 75 guests. His dad flipped out and said just because she, me, has no family, doesn't mean I shouldn't be allowed to invite everyone that I want to. I was raised by my dad after my mom was discovered to be extremely abusive, so I only had his side of my family, which almost everyone in my ex's family knew, making it super awkward that I was being yelled at for having a horrible mother. Anyways, after his dad blew up, no one said anything for a really long time. My ex didn't tell his dad that he was wrong for saying something like that. There's a good first warning sign. I went to lunch with my boyfriend and his mother during the first year of our relationship. She told me her husband really didn't like me and thought I was going to ruin my boyfriend's career. I cried into my sashimi and had to excuse myself. Are you still together? How did it turn out? We are. It's been 3 great years. I ended up moving across the country to be with him. Military. His parents and I are civil, though they don't approve of us living together. We don't really talk, but I try to get along with them when I do see them for my boyfriend's sake. I don't ever want him to feel like he has to choose between us. You are good. My aunts got in a physical fight at Christmas dinner once because my grandma, their mother, was wearing a fat diamond ring they both wanted when she died. They each proclaimed this quite loudly at the dinner table, in front of my still incredibly healthy grandma and the rest of the family. Next thing I know, the table upends and they are kicking, screaming, and clawing on the floor as everyone else kind of just stands there in shock. Grandpa just shook his head and had another drink of whatever the hell was in his glass. My wife and her sisters argue over their inheritance at Christmas. With that being said, it's definitely not anything special. Apparently there is a spoon that they used while growing up. It's supposedly a very nice spoon. They all argue about who's going to get that spoon when their very healthy mother dies. I've never really understood it. My grandfather and his siblings are barely on speaking terms after arguing, and the ensuing legal battles, about who inherited my great-grandpa's stuff. When in our 20s, siblings and I saw that, we all agreed that no matter what happens we'll never let that greed tear us apart like that. Edit. I think my favorite part of their argument is the fact that it's not the brand of spoon or anything like that. For Christmas a couple years ago my wife got each of them their own spoon. Same make and model. They were all excited, but now they all want the original spoon. First time my oldest brother and his wife meeting my boyfriend, now husband of over 10 years. Over dinner we started off with small talk and then there was a lull in the conversation. Boyfriend speaks up with, so anyone else's parent ever had an STD? I was a bit mortified because 1, that's an awkward icebreaker, and 2, I didn't know his mom had gotten an STD. I still laugh about that dinner. Pretty sure I did a literal facepalm lol. The divorce one, or at least the announcement at dinner. Thanks dad. Classic dad. Inner thoughts like, well, everyone's gathered and here for 20 minutes. Let's 2 birds 1 stone this lovely meal and drop our bombshell out of the office gravy. No Bill, no. This first. Then I'll ask them to pass it. The one where only I showed up. My then boyfriend invited me to his family Thanksgiving. I was really anxious about getting there early, meeting people, helping set up, making a good impression and all that. He kept saying that they were very laid back. Nobody cared when anyone arrived. They probably wouldn't eat until like 7 p.m. Even though the Facebook event said to be there at 3 and they would eat at 4. We show up at 6. Food is ready. Clearly everybody is waiting for him and clearly annoyed. Everyone is dressed like they're going to church. His mom and grandma both had a I'm not mad just disappointed face. Boyfriend just walked in holding an open beer, cheered loudly at the food, and started making himself a plate while everyone was just sitting in the living room still. I was so anxious at this point that I thought I was going to throw up. He sits down at the empty table and starts eating, notices that I'm not next to him, gets up, hands me a plate and starts loudly instructing me on what to eat. Starts cutting up their turkey. Entire family is still in the living room, still clearly displeased. It's really awkward, and he doesn't even notice. Family starts joining hands to pray. Boyfriend looks over it, sees this, and continues eating and trying to engage with me. I'm hoping that the Midwest experiences their first ever massive earthquake and swallows me to the ground. Family finally starts serving themselves and sits down. His grandmother looks over at me. So who's this one? He told me that he had been telling his family about me for months, that they were excited to meet me. I was specifically invited because they knew we were together even though they hadn't met me yet. That was not the case. No, I was crashing a little church-going family Thanksgiving. I couldn't do anything except focus on breathing, so I didn't cry for the next hour or so. When we left, He was mad at me for not eating anything, or making conversation, because he felt as though his family got a bad first impression of me because I was quiet. We dated for another few months because I am a moron. Went to Zmas at a serious GF's family in the next state over. They didn't really tell me much or warn me about any landmines. Her grandma met us at the door. I greeted her warmly. Very nice to meet you. Thanks for welcoming me into your home. How are you? Can I help with anything? Well, I'm dying. Can you cure cancer? No? Then I guess you better start peeling potatoes. And gave me stink eye the rest of the weekend. Then her cousin came in wearing drag and declared he identifies as a girl, which I'm all fine with or whatever, but this was the first that his small town Midwest parents knew of it. LOL, I believe she got gender reassignment surgery. So they serve stuff and we're eating, and the cousin's mom, my GF's aunt I guess, just decides to pop a few quaaludes right at the table in front of everyone, eats a bunch of food, disappears for the entire rest of the weekend, literally, gone on a bender, left the phone behind, walked out the door with a bag of pills and a 1.75 of bottom shelf plastic bottle vodka. One of my daughter's boyfriends pretended to not know what a potato was. Went to my best friend's house to eat a little meal and they started telling funny stories about their family. This goes on for like 8 minutes. Then all of a sudden they stopped laughing and just stared at each other. I'm the only vegetarian in my extended family. So I was at my grandparents' house visiting and the main meal was this chicken chili, so everyone realized I wasn't going to eat it and I wasn't trying to be rude, but all I ate for that meal was salad, so it was pretty awkward and I think my aunt was mad because I didn't eat her food. When my great aunt leaned over to me, drunk out of her mind, and said, "If you ever need weed, like the good weed, come to me. You don't want to get that nasty laced stuff from your teenager friends." All the grown-ups immediately escorted her out of the dining room and then it was all screaming after that. I cried in the bathroom, said goodbye to everyone, and went home. I was like 13 or 14. My grandmother's mind was slowly deteriorating. It was the early stages of Alzheimer's, but I don't think any of us wanted to admit that yet. It was a Christmas meal. She'd made something really weird, like she had begun cooking one meal, forgot what she was doing, began cooking another meal, and combined them. Something like mashed potatoes with bits of macaroni and turkey thrown in. It was disgusting. We ate that meal in silence, while every few minutes she would just look up cheerfully and say, "My compliments to the chef." Unable to remember that the chef was her. It's a thing that is at once incredibly sad but, real talk, also kind of funny. The one right after I ran over the family dog. My dad, a physician, would always give anatomy lessons when eating chicken. More funny, and educational, than awkward. I was at a dinner with my friend and his girlfriend. At one point she says, "Daddy, can I have the water?" Her boyfriend and her dad reached out at the same time. There was a lot of awkward silence that night, but was hilarious, face with tears of joy. At a friend's home with a couple that would argue in French. I was the only other person who knew French. I sat there while the GF berated her BF. At one point she told him, "You know where the door is. Now get out." I laughed, I was so uncomfortable. She didn't like me. When your mom starts roasting you at the family dinner, then your grandma and aunties start throwing in their 2 cents. Did you enjoy this video? Like and subscribe for more real life drama.